A few years ago, a financial advisor named Mitchell was invited to a dinner party at the home of one of his wealthiest clients. The client, a 71-year-old named Harold, had built a manufacturing business over 40 years and sold it for $34 million. His net worth, including real estate, investments, and other assets, exceeded $42 million. Mitchell arrived expecting something impressive, a gated estate perhaps, staff, the kind of home that announces wealth before you reach the front door. Instead, he pulled into the driveway of a well-maintained but thoroughly ordinary four-bedroom colonial in a middle-class suburb outside Cleveland. The house was worth maybe $450,000. Harold answered the door himself, wearing a flannel shirt and khakis. His wife was in the kitchen finishing dinner. There was no chef, no housekeeper visible, no ostentation of any kind. During dinner, Mitchell noticed details that surprised him. The furniture was dated, not antique or valuable, just old. Harold mentioned they'd had the same dining room set for 28 years. The television in the living room was a 42-inch model that had to be at least 8 years old. The cars in the garage were a 2020 Honda CR-V and a 2018 Toyota Camry. At one point, Harold's wife offered Mitchell a drink. She apologized that they only had tap water, a few sodas, and some beer. No bottled water. Harold joked that he'd never understood paying for something that came out of the faucet for free. Later, Harold mentioned he needed to pick up some ibuprofen on the way home from golf the next day. His wife reminded him to get the store brand, not the Advil. Same medicine, she said, half the price. Mitchell left that evening recalibrating everything he thought he knew about wealthy people. Harold wasn't performing frugality for show. He wasn't cheap in a way that diminished his quality of life. He simply had a deeply ingrained set of principles about what was and wasn't worth spending money on. Those principles had been part of how he built his wealth in the first place. Selling his business hadn't changed them. The things Harold refused to buy weren't the things most people would expect. He didn't live in a small house because he couldn't afford a mansion. He lived in that house because a mansion would have meant paying for space he didn't use, maintenance he didn't need, and property taxes that served no purpose. His refusals weren't about deprivation. They were about clarity. This is what most people misunderstand about wealthy people and spending. The assumption is that wealthy people buy whatever they want because they can afford it. The reality is nearly opposite. Wealthy people become wealthy partly because they develop a sophisticated understanding of what's actually worth buying and what's a waste of money, regardless of how much you have. Their wealth didn't make them frugal. Their frugality, applied consistently over decades, helped make them wealthy. And selling a business or reaching a certain net worth doesn't suddenly change those instincts. Today, I'm going to walk you through 12 things that wealthy people consistently refuse to buy. These aren't the obvious answers you'd expect, like expensive cars or designer clothes. Those get discussed constantly. What I'm going to show you are the less obvious refusals, the spending categories where wealthy people diverge from average consumers in ways that seem small but compound into significant wealth differences over time. Understanding these refusals won't just help you save money, it will reveal a fundamentally different way of evaluating purchases, a framework that wealthy people apply automatically, but most people never develop. Before I walk through the specific items, let me establish the research foundation that explains why wealthy people's spending patterns diverge so dramatically from what most people assume. Thomas Stanley spent his career studying millionaires across America. His research consistently found that most millionaires are what he called PAWs, prodigious accumulators of wealth, rather than high-income, high-spending consumers. Their defining characteristic wasn't earning more. It was keeping more of what they earned through thousands of small decisions that compounded over decades. A 2025 study from Ramsey Solutions surveyed over 10,000 millionaires and found that 94% still live on less than they make. Not because they have to, because the habits that built their wealth became part of their identity. Spending patterns don't suddenly change when net worth crosses a threshold. The research reveals something counterintuitive. Wealthy people aren't more willing to spend on everything. They're more selective about what they spend on. They allocate aggressively toward things that provide genuine value and refuse almost automatically to spend on things that don't. This selectivity is the key insight. Average consumers evaluate purchases by asking, "Can I afford this?" Wealthy people evaluate purchases by asking, "Is this worth it?" The questions sound similar. They produce dramatically different outcomes. A person asking, "Can I afford this?" will buy almost anything that fits within their budget. A person asking, "Is this worth it?" will reject many purchases that fit within their budget because the value doesn't justify the cost. Over a lifetime, the difference between these two questions creates gaps of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Let me show you where those gaps appear. Number 1. Extended warranties and protection plans. When wealthy people buy electronics, appliances, or vehicles, they almost universally decline the extended warranty. This seems counterintuitive. If you can afford the protection, why not buy peace of mind? Because the math doesn't work. Extended warranties are priced to be profitable for the company selling them. That means, on average, consumers pay more in warranty premiums than they receive in repairs. The company is betting you won't need coverage. If they lost that bet consistently, they'd stop offering warranties. Research from Consumer Reports found that extended warranties are rarely worth the cost. Only about 20% of products covered by extended warranties ever need repair during the extended period. The average repair cost when something does break is often comparable to or less than the warranty cost. Wealthy people understand this math intuitively. They self-insure instead. Rather than paying $200 for a warranty on a $1,000 appliance, they skip the warranty and handle the repair cost directly if something breaks. Over a lifetime of purchases, they come out substantially ahead. The amount saved on a single warranty seems trivial, but a household that declines every extended warranty offered to them over 40 years saves thousands of dollars in premiums while paying for only the small percentage of repairs that actually become necessary. Harold, the $42 million manufacturer from the beginning of this script, told Mitchell he hadn't bought an extended warranty in over 30 years. He estimated the lifetime savings at somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000, accounting for the few repairs he'd paid for out of pocket. Number 2. Brand name medications and basic household products. Wealthy people disproportionately buy generic medications, store-brand household products, and private label goods. This surprises people who assume wealth correlates with brand loyalty. The opposite is often true. Wealthy people are more likely to understand that brand premiums frequently buy marketing rather than quality. The FDA requires generic medications to contain the same active ingredients in the same concentrations as brand name drugs. A bottle of 200 generic ibuprofen tablets costs roughly $8. The same quantity of Advil costs $18 to $22. The pills are chemically identical. The same pattern holds for household staples. Store-brand cereal, cleaning products, batteries, and pantry items are frequently manufactured in the same facilities as their branded counterparts. The price difference is pure marketing premium. A household that switches from brand name to store brand across all categories where quality is equivalent saves approximately $2,000 to $4,000 annually. Over 30 years, that's $60,000 to $120,000 in spending difference. Invested at 7% returns, the savings compound to over $200,000. Harold's wife wasn't being cheap when she reminded him to buy store-brand ibuprofen. She was applying the same cost-benefit analysis she'd applied to thousands of purchases over decades. The cumulative effect of those analyses was part of why they had $42 million instead of $40 million. Number 3. First-year releases of anything. When a new car model launches, a new phone releases, or a new appliance line debuts, wealthy people rarely buy in the first year. This restraint serves two purposes. First, first-year products often have undiscovered defects that get corrected in subsequent versions. The first model year of a new car generation frequently has recalls, software bugs, and quality issues that don't appear in year 2 or 3. Early adopters pay full price to beta test products for the manufacturer. Second, first-year pricing reflects maximum demand. Prices drop substantially in subsequent years as initial excitement fades and competition increases. The person who waits 18 months for the same product often pays 20 to 40% less than the early adopter. Wealthy people understand that patience is a financial asset. The gratification of having something first costs money. That cost rarely provides corresponding value. When Apple releases a new iPhone, wealthy people are disproportionately likely to wait a year and buy the previous generation at a discount. When automakers introduce redesigned models, wealthy people often buy the final year of the outgoing generation, which dealers discount heavily to clear inventory. The savings per purchase might be $500 to $5,000. Multiply by the dozens of major purchases made over a lifetime, and the pattern produces substantial wealth preservation. Number 4. Premium fuel when their car doesn't require it. This refusal reveals how wealthy people think about specifications versus marketing. Most vehicles are designed to run on regular 87-octane gasoline. The owner's manual specifies regular fuel. The engine is tuned for regular fuel. Premium fuel provides zero performance benefit and zero protection benefit in these vehicles. Yet millions of Americans put premium fuel in cars that don't need it, paying 40 to 60 cents more per gallon. They believe premium means better. They've absorbed marketing that associates higher octane with higher quality. Wealthy people read the manual. If the manual says regular, they buy regular. The 40 cents per gallon saved on a 15-gallon fill-up is $6. For someone filling up weekly, that's $312 annually. Over 10 years of vehicle ownership, that's $3,120 on a single car for fuel that provided no benefit. The pattern extends beyond fuel. Wealthy people don't pay more for premium versions of products when the standard version meets their actual needs. They evaluate what they require and buy to that specification, not to the most expensive option available. Number 5. Bottled water as a regular purchase. Wealthy households disproportionately use filtered tap water rather than buying bottled water for daily consumption. This seems trivial. A case of bottled water costs $6 to $8, but the cumulative spending adds up quickly for households that rely on bottled water as their primary drinking source. A family of 4 drinking the recommended daily water intake entirely from bottles would spend roughly $1,500 to $2,000 annually. A quality water filtration system costs $150 to $400 upfront and perhaps $50 to $100 annually in filter replacements. The lifetime savings from switching to filtered water easily exceed $30,000 for a typical household. That money, invested at 7% returns for 30 years, becomes approximately $90,000. Beyond the math, wealthy people recognize that bottled water is largely a manufactured preference. Municipal tap water in most American cities meets or exceeds EPA safety standards. A simple filter addresses taste and any remaining contaminants. The product being purchased is convenience and marketing, not meaningfully different water. Harold's joke about paying for something that comes from the faucet wasn't just humor. It was a reflection of how he'd evaluated the purchase and found it wanting. Number 6. High-fee financial products. This refusal is among the most consequential on this list, and it's one that separates wealthy people from high-income people who never build wealth. Wealthy people avoid actively managed mutual funds with expense ratios above 1%. They avoid whole life insurance policies marketed as investment vehicles. They avoid annuities with high surrender charges and hidden fees. They avoid financial advisors who charge percentage-based fees on assets under management when flat fee alternatives exist. The math on fees is devastating. A 1% annual fee on a $500,000 portfolio is $5,000 per year. Over 30 years, assuming the portfolio grows, cumulative fees exceed $400,000. More importantly, the money paid in fees doesn't compound. The portfolio that would have grown to $2.4 million instead grows to $1.9 million. The difference isn't just the fees, it's the growth those fees would have generated. Research consistently shows that low-cost index funds outperform actively managed funds over long periods, precisely because fees create a persistent drag that's nearly impossible to overcome through superior stock selection. Wealthy people know this. They invest in low-cost index funds with expense ratios of 0.03 to 0.2%. They use fee-only financial advisors who charge flat rates or hourly fees rather than percentage-based asset management fees. The difference in fees seems small as a percentage. Over a 40-year investing career, it compounds into hundreds of thousands of dollars that either stay in your portfolio or transfer to financial services companies. Number 7. Timeshares and vacation ownership clubs. Wealthy people almost universally avoid timeshares, and those who accidentally acquired one through high-pressure sales tactics often pay to exit the contract. Timeshares are marketed as smart financial alternatives to hotel stays. The math presented in sales presentations appears compelling, but the actual economics are terrible. A typical timeshare costs $20,000 to $40,000 upfront, plus annual maintenance fees of $1,000 to $2,000 that increase over time. The owner receives 1 week of vacation annually at a specific property, or points that theoretically provide flexibility. For the same money, that person could take luxury vacations every year for decades, without the upfront cost, without the maintenance fees, and without the complete illiquidity of an asset that's nearly impossible to sell. Timeshares have essentially zero resale value. The secondary market is flooded with owners trying to give their timeshares away simply to escape the maintenance fees. Companies exist specifically to help people exit timeshare contracts, charging thousands of dollars for the service. Wealthy people recognize that timeshares are consumption disguised as investment. The high-pressure sales tactics used to sell them are a red flag that the product can't survive rational evaluation. Number 8. Lottery tickets and gambling as entertainment. Wealthy people understand expected value in ways that make lottery tickets mathematically intolerable. The expected return on a lottery ticket is negative 50% or worse. For every dollar spent, the expected return is roughly 40 to 50 cents. No rational analysis supports the purchase. The counterargument is always the same. Someone has to win. It could be me. But wealthy people think in probabilities rather than possibilities. The probability of winning a major lottery jackpot is roughly 1 in 300 million. You're more likely to be struck by lightning twice. The average American household spends approximately $650 annually on lottery tickets. For lower-income households, the figure is even higher. That $650 invested annually at 7% returns for 30 years becomes approximately $66,000. Wealthy people redirect that spending into assets that have positive expected returns rather than negative ones. The lottery feels like investing in hope. It's actually investing in mathematical certainty of loss. Number 9. Full price on anything negotiable. Wealthy people negotiate in situations where average consumers accept the listed price without question. They negotiate car purchases, major appliances, furniture, jewelry, service contracts, medical bills, and cable packages. They ask for discounts on annual subscriptions. They request fee waivers on financial accounts. They counter initial offers on everything from home purchases to contractor bids. Research shows that people who negotiate consistently pay 10 to 20% less for negotiable goods and services than people who accept first offers. On a car purchase, that's $3,000 to $8,000. On a home purchase, that's potentially $20,000 to $50,000. The savings from a lifetime of negotiation easily exceed $100,000. And unlike cost-cutting that requires ongoing deprivation, negotiation is a one-time conversation that produces permanent savings on each purchase. Wealthy people negotiate not because they need to save money, but because they recognize that accepting inflated prices is voluntary. The price tag is a starting position, not a final answer. Number 10. New furniture when quality used exists. Wealthy people disproportionately buy used furniture, estate sale items, and antique pieces rather than new furniture from retail stores. This seems backward. Surely wealthy people can afford new furniture. They can. They choose not to because the value proposition of new furniture is terrible. A new sectional sofa costs $3,000 to $8,000 at retail. A comparable quality sectional, gently used, sells for $500 to $1,500 on resale markets. The used piece may actually be higher quality because older furniture was often built with better materials and craftsmanship than contemporary mass-market pieces. Furniture depreciation is immediate and severe. The moment you take delivery, a new piece loses 30 to 50% of its value. Buying used means someone else absorbed that depreciation. Wealthy people also recognize that furniture quality peaked decades ago in many categories. A solid wood dresser from the 1960s or 70s is frequently better constructed than a particle board dresser from 2025. The savings on a full household of furniture easily reach $20,000 to $40,000 compared to buying everything new. That money, invested instead of spent on depreciation, continues working for decades. Number 11. Anything that requires financing for consumption. This refusal separates wealthy people from people who merely have high incomes. Wealthy people don't finance vacations, clothing, furniture, electronics, or other consumption purchases. If they can't pay cash, they don't buy it. The idea of paying interest on something that depreciates or provides no lasting value is fundamentally incompatible with how they think about money. Buy now, pay later services, store financing, and personal loans for consumption are marketed as making things affordable. What they actually do is make expensive things accessible while adding interest costs that make them even more expensive. A $2,000 purchase financed at 20% interest over 2 years costs roughly $2,440. The $440 in interest bought nothing. It was a fee for impatience. Wealthy people maintain a strict separation between debt used for investment, such as mortgages on appreciating property, and debt used for consumption, which they avoid entirely. This discipline prevents the debt spiral that traps millions of Americans in perpetual payments on things they've already consumed. Number 12. Gifts that create ongoing costs for recipients. This final refusal reveals how wealthy people think about money even when spending on others. They avoid giving gifts that create maintenance costs, subscription requirements, or ongoing obligations for the recipient. They don't give pets that require care expenses. They don't give elaborate presents that need accessories, supplies, or storage. They don't pay for the first year of subscriptions that the recipient will feel obligated to continue. Instead, they give money directly, experiences that don't create obligations, or items that are complete in themselves. This philosophy extends to how they approach their own purchases. They evaluate not just the acquisition cost, but the total cost of ownership. An item that costs $100 but requires $50 in annual maintenance is actually more expensive than an item that costs $200 and requires nothing further. The pattern applies to boats, vacation homes, hobby equipment, and countless other categories where the purchase price represents only a fraction of the lifetime cost. Let me give you specific guidance on how to apply these refusals to your own financial decisions. If you're currently buying extended warranties habitually, stop. Create a separate savings account called self-insurance and deposit the money you would have spent on warranties. When something breaks, pay for the repair from this fund. Over time, you'll accumulate money rather than giving it to warranty companies. If you're loyal to brand names without evaluating whether the premium buys actual quality, spend 1 month buying store brands in every category. Note which products you can't tell apart from the branded versions. Switch permanently in those categories. Keep paying the premium only where you genuinely perceive a difference. If you buy new releases immediately, institute a waiting period. No technology purchase in the first year of release. No vehicle purchase in the first model year of a generation. The patience will save you money and protect you from early adopter problems. If you pay fees without evaluating them, audit your financial products. What is the expense ratio on each mutual fund you own? What percentage of assets does your financial advisor charge? What fees are you paying on bank accounts, credit cards, and insurance policies? Reduce fees wherever possible without sacrificing necessary coverage. If you accept listed prices on major purchases, practice negotiation. Start with something low stakes. Ask for a discount on your cable bill. Counter the first offer at a furniture store. Request a fee waiver on a bank account. The discomfort fades with practice, and the savings accumulate with every transaction. If you finance consumption purchases, stop. If you can't pay cash for something that isn't a home or a vehicle for work, you can't afford it yet. Build savings specifically for major purchases and buy only when the cash exists. The 12 refusals I've described aren't arbitrary preferences. They reflect a coherent philosophy about what money is for and how spending decisions should be made. Harold, the $42 million retiree, didn't think about these decisions individually. He didn't calculate the expected value of extended warranties each time he declined one. He didn't research generic medications before every pharmacy trip. He developed a framework, a set of principles about value that made the decisions automatic. That framework is the real difference between wealthy people and people who earn similar incomes but accumulate far less. Average consumers make spending decisions based on whether they can afford something and whether they want it. If both answers are yes, they buy. Wealthy people add a third question. Is this worth it? That question filters out purchases that fit the budget and appeal emotionally, but fail to deliver value proportional to their cost. Over thousands of decisions across decades, that filter creates the gap between moderate wealth and substantial wealth. The counterintuitive truth is that wealthy people enjoy spending money. They just enjoy spending it on things that matter to them rather than things that don't. They travel, they eat well, they buy quality. They're not living lives of deprivation. They've simply refused to subsidize marketing departments, insurance company profits, and the premium charged for impatience. They've refused to pay for things that provide no genuine satisfaction. They've refused to let spending decisions happen on autopilot. Mitchell, the financial advisor who visited Harold's home, said that evening changed how he talked to clients about spending. He stopped assuming wealthy clients wanted to maximize consumption. He started asking what they actually valued and building financial plans around those values rather than around arbitrary spending assumptions. What he learned from Harold was that the refusals weren't sacrifices. Harold didn't feel deprived by his 2018 Camry or his tap water or his store-brand ibuprofen. He felt free from the pressure to signal wealth through purchases, free from the maintenance costs of elaborate possessions, free from the anxiety of lifestyle that required continuous income to sustain. The refusals created freedom. The freedom created security. The security created a retirement where Harold's primary concern was which golf course to play, not whether his money would last. That outcome wasn't guaranteed by his business sale. Many people who sell businesses for millions of dollars manage to spend it all within a decade. Harold's outcome was guaranteed by the principles he'd applied for 50 years and continued applying after the money arrived. Those principles aren't secret. They're not complicated. They're available to anyone willing to evaluate purchases by asking, "Is this worth it?" rather than, "Can I afford this?" The shift from one question to the other changes everything. This is what financial literacy actually means. Not memorizing which index fund to buy or which tax account to use, but understanding how money works at a fundamental level. Understanding that every purchase is a trade, money exchanged for value received, and that wealthy people consistently refuse trades that don't deliver adequate value. The person who understands these principles applies them automatically across every spending category. The person who doesn't understand them makes the same mistakes in every category, bleeding money through extended warranties, brand premiums, high fees, and impatience across a lifetime of purchases. If you've recognized patterns in your own spending that match the mistakes wealthy people avoid, that recognition is the starting point for change. There's a video on this channel that breaks down financial literacy from the foundation, the principles that make every other financial decision clearer. That understanding changes not just how much you save, but how you think about every dollar that flows through your life. Harold didn't become wealthy by accident. He became wealthy by thinking differently about money than most people think. The house in suburban Cleveland, the Honda CR-V, the store brand ibuprofen, these weren't signs of poverty. They were signs of clarity about what actually mattered. That clarity is available to anyone willing to develop it. The 12 refusals aren't rules to memorize. They're symptoms of a mindset. The mindset is what creates wealth. The refusals just follow naturally once the mindset is in place. Develop the mindset and you won't need a list. You'll see waste everywhere average consumers see normal spending. You'll see opportunity where others see deprivation. You'll see the path to wealth not as earning more, but as keeping more of what you already earn. Harold drove home from dinner that night in his 2018 Camry. Mitchell drove home in his leased BMW. One of them was wealthier than the other. It wasn't the one you'd guess from the parking lot. That's the point.